My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
When it comes to fitness, what's real? How about when it really, truly fits your life? That's how Anytime Fitness sees it. Because our coaches see you. It's how they build personal plans that work wherever you are and focus on everything that matters, from fitness to nutrition to recovery, all so you can push yourself further than ever, or just through the next rep. It's total 360 support for a real difference. That's Anytime Fitness. That's Real AF. Visit AnytimeFitness.com.
Did you know Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company? They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than just quarterback Peyton Manning, I'm also meditating Manning. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
Hello and welcome to a special Rookie Camp episode of Islanders Anxiety. My name is Dan Saracini. Joining me on this Sunday afternoon via Zencaster is my friend Michael Leboff. And Mike, Rookie Camp has begun. We've already gotten the first couple of little newsy notes out of the Islanders. We're going to talk about a couple of specific ones today, mainly just about the PTOs, professional tryout contracts that have either been issued by the Islanders or, in one case, not issued by the Islanders. Just in general, though, seeing rookie camp tweets, seeing rookies filing in, making some videos and stuff like that, even though it's been unseasonably hot this week, it really does make you know that hockey is in the air and it will be upon us soon. So how do these rookie camp missives make you feel this first week here?
They drive me up a wall.
This guy looks like a beast this year.
Oh my God.
It's a routine play in the corner.
I know, it's so funny. He's fearless.
Yeah.
I saw some Rangers writers talking about how some player was fearless or something. And the Maple Leafs prospects played the Canadiens prospects the other night at Centre Bell, and Fraser Minton, who, if you remember from last year.
Oh, I do.
He was turning heads at camp and then earned his stripes and then was never heard from again. Scored a shootout goal in a prospect game and celebrated, and everyone was like, wow, this guy really knows how to goad these Habs fans. He understands the assignment.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we get it here too. Of course, there's people tweeting about Islanders rookie camps and showing videos of these drills and players that will just by the odds never come close to making the NHL. I mean, it's shutting someone down on a 2-on-1 or something. It's maybe there are people out there who want that kind of content. I'm not on that list. Maybe I was at one point. I don't think I ever was, but the less I see from rookie camp, the more. I just want the check mark at the end of the day saying everybody got out of here in one piece.
Right.
And it was funny. I saw on my Twitter timeline a bunch of Ranger fans were complaining because the Rangers account. I'm not even kidding. If you can probably go find these tweets yourselves. They were um, they were complaining that the Rangers' main account didn't tweet enough during their prospect game against the Flyers, and somebody counted how many tweets the Flyers account did
Oh my
compared
God.
to the Rangers account, and they were complaining that the Flyers had like a 19-1 ratio of tweets during their prospect game, and I don't know what's sadder, honestly. Me looking for that stuff, seeing it, noting it,
Mm,
talking about it on this podcast, the people complaining about it, counting it out, or
mm,
that this is what kind of this week of hockey uh, media looks like, because
mm.
it's pretty tough to
Yeah.
be out here, and I just can't wait for when you're really jonesing for regular training camp, which is also very
Yeah.
banal and mundane to start. It's tough.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, the most notable news coming out of either rookie or regular camp is that everybody's healthy. Basically, everything else is just sort of like noise. And what really turned me off from like camp tweets was actually not even hockey stuff, but football stuff. I followed just a couple of football reporters, and normally they're pretty good. And then just during training camp in, I guess whatever it is, June or something, I don't need to know that some third string quarterback just threw a strike to some
Yeah,
practice roster wide receiver for a 10-yard gain or something. I don't need to hear it. This is
I
nonsense.
get. Is that who we should blame for this? I think you're right. Right,
I
like
think so.
that's probably where it originated,
Right.
and hockey reporters started to
Yeah.
do it, and then hockey like bloggers, people who are kind of
Right.
punching their way up in the world, and all credit to them for doing that. But and working hard and grinding through it, because it can't be much fun for them either. But
No.
yeah, I feel like we can kind of all look each other in the eye and be like, yeah, I don't need to know this. I don't need to know that E2
Right.
Leokis came in at 6 pounds heavier than he did last year, but it's
Right.
muscle and
Yeah.
or anything like that. So
Right.
yeah, the less the better. My favorite part of this week usually is that this is the week that everybody arrives in town.
Yeah.
For the Islanders and for other teams, they do like golf outings and poker tournaments. And
Mm.
Andersley had his jam cancer in the can event the other night. And I say this a lot, but I have a legitimate fear sometimes that some of these players just won't come back to the Islanders. Like they'll just be like, why am I playing for the New York Islanders?
Mm.
And that obviously goes back to what they were like, 15 years ago.
Mm.
So when that stuff actually did happen, players would just be like, I'm not going there, even though you traded me. So I'm happy to see their
Mm.
faces in town and being here and wearing Islanders stuff and be like, okay, like
Yeah.
Noah Dobson's here, Matt Barzal's here. They're not being like, I'm much better than the Islanders. Like, go get me to a better team. So that's my favorite part. Once I see those guys, I'm good. I can move
Mm.
on.
Yeah. It is cool to see guys coming in, but I'm also reminded that a lot of Islanders don't leave the island. So it's like they just kind of are around, and then they just show it. Now instead of showing up to skate at Northwell on their own, they're
Yeah.
showing up and being photographed and showing up to
Right,
Northwell,
right. It's so funny, like that. Like someone like Casey Cizikas, who just lives here year round, is just like a regular Long Island dad
Right.
in the
Yeah.
summer. Like he morphs from being Islander. My job is like flying me all over the continent, playing hockey games against
Right.
Sidney Crosby. But then in the summer, I just go to the beach and stuff, go into the pool.
Right. Yeah.
What a
Even Oliver Wahlstrom, I don't think, barely left the island, too. So, and his presence here is kind of still surprising a little bit. But yeah, no, it's an odd time, and every once in a while during the summer, I get a little bit kind of, I wonder about myself, like in my, about my Twitter feed and stuff, and like we don't really do much during the summer, but I am then reminded that I am increasingly hating being on Twitter and all social media for the most part. B, at least we're not tweeting like training camp stuff about who looks like a beast and who doesn't, again, during, scrimmages. And C, we're not tweeting about the Mets. And no offense to the Mets who have turned things around. That's a thing that is very, very popular amongst Islanders reporters is now it's baseball season and I got to talk about the Mets. Like, no thanks. That's not us. So you're not going to get that from us. I hope that's okay. But we are here again to talk about a couple of happenings from rookie camp. And again, we're going to focus just on the PTOs today because they could impact the Islanders coming out of camp, which doesn't start in full until next Thursday or Friday. I forget. So I'm going to give you the choice about who do we start with. We have three guys really in particular that we need to discuss. One is brand new PTO Keith Kinkaid, another Long Island guy who just kind of, now is part of the Islanders finally, even though, again, he's been working out at Northwell for all summer, apparently. Two is Matt Martin, who old guy, obviously, old Islander guy, legendary Islander at this point, but is on a PTO tryout right now and is going to be given an opportunity to make the team. And Cal Clutterbuck, who Lou Lamoriello came out this week and said would not be issued a tryout and presumably won't be back with the Islanders this season for the first time in 12 years or whatever it is. So who do you want to start with of those three guys? The outgoing one or one of the two incoming ones?
Yeah, let's start with Kinkaid because I think that Clutterbuck and Martin will be a more emotionally tugging conversation, like a longer one.
Right.
So we'll get there. But the Kinkaid one, because I also think it ties to how we opened the show as well, with the kind of chatter around these rookie camps and training camp in general.
For sure. So Keith Kinkaid, goalie, obviously, has been with the Devils, started his career with the Devils for a long time back in 2012, 2013. Played for them for 151 games, 64 wins, 55 losses, 17 ties / overtime losses, whatever. Played for the Rangers for a little while, played for Montreal for a little while, played for Boston and Colorado last year, apparently, or 2 years ago, I should say. He spent most of last year in the minors. But the only thing you need to know is that the one thing we already know about Keith Kinkaid, he's from Farmingville. His parents and him were season ticket holders to the Islanders for many years. He grew up an Islanders fan. And finally, at the age of 35, this dude has finally signed a professional contract or professional tryout contract, I should say, with the team he grew up idolizing. Do I expect Keith Kinkaid to play for the actual Islanders this year? I don't know. Probably not. It's more, maybe 10% chance at that if both goalies are healthy, and we'll get to Ilya Sorokin's key part of this in a second. But, and I said this on Twitter, I don't really care because I'm happy for this guy. Like, this to me is the kind of story that I wish the Islanders did more. A guy we know is an Islanders fan. He's here now. I don't think he has any, he talked about still having stuff left in the tank, how he wants to finish the trifecta, Devils, Rangers, Islanders. And obviously he grew up and talked about his time here. If you haven't watched the video, it's on the Islanders site. And I just love it. I'm just so glad he's here. And I don't know if he's going to play for maybe, if they're good enough and they've clinched a playoff berth, maybe he plays in the last game of the season. Maybe he, plays pretty well for Bridgeport and gives them a steady hand and goal, which they can use because they're looking okay this year at the other positions. All I know is I'm happy for this guy. And all I can think about is, like, you and I are Islanders fans. The people listening to this show are Islanders fans. If we were good enough to play in the NHL, and we are, if Keith Kinkaid is half as, into this team as we are and have been for our whole lives, signing this contract for him is probably like a really huge deal. And I was very happy for the guy. I hope it works out, and I hope he enjoys his time here. And the funny thing is, apparently, according to Lamoriello, he had been hanging around and working out at Northwell, and they were like, all right, well, let's see what you got. And he looked pretty good. And so they signed him to a PTO. And so here he is. So what'd you make of the Kinkaid signing? On one hand, it was a cool surprise, but on the other hand, it's kind of not surprising at all that he's here because it feels like it's taken long enough for him to get here.
Yeah, there's this, I think his impact on the Islanders themselves and like their chances this season is a non-story, right? Like I don't think there's anything to this at all outside of what Lamoriello said. Like he did us a favor by sticking around and playing goalie for the guys during the skates
right
on Long Island. So we're doing him a favor to let him kind of go to a training camp. Maybe there's a goalie that gets hurt somewhere else and he picks up a two-way deal, whatever. So I think that's it. Like you can kind of just nip it in the bud. We don't have to look in further than anything beyond that because the Islanders have allegedly they have their goaltending set, right? With
Right.
Sorokin, Varlamov, and Hogberg as the three, and then one of the AHL goalies with him. But like you said, the other part of this is a story. It's a fun story to see him finally get to wear an Islanders jersey. I like that he kind of had like a funny attitude about being in rookie camp.
Yeah, because he's 35.
Well, and this is why I was kind of bringing up that this is a connection to the first part of the show, that the Islanders, of course, cop some flack for having Keith Kinkaid. Oh, look at he's a 35-year-old guy with 170 NHL games is at rookie camp. Like Lou was always gonna Lou. Like when once again the story here is, yeah, he's doing the guy a favor. Like this is a nice thing, like that Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders are doing for this player. It's not. There's nothing dictatorial about this. He's not saying, well, Keith, you're gonna go to a rookie camp because you got to earn your way. This isn't like blood, sweat, and tears. They're not dragging him through like bag skates and stuff. They're doing the guy a favor, and I'm sure he's very grateful for the opportunity that maybe he could have got a PTO at another camp or at an AHL camp, but he doesn't have to leave Long Island, and he gets to go probably play a couple preseason games. And I'm frankly happy to have as many goalies in camp as possible, because I don't want any of my goalies ever playing games that are meaningless. Like the last thing I want is Sorokin or Varlamov to play a preseason game and come up lame. So go see what Manny Fernandez is doing, and maybe he wants to play an Islanders preseason game or something. So like you said, the romantic part of the story is cool. The non-story part of the story was bugging me, just because people once again are missing the forest for the trees here. Whereas if this was a Toronto area goalie or a Pittsburgh area goalie who was coming to camp on a PTO, going to rookie camp, the stories would just be shoved up our nostrils. Like, oh my God, this is the good side of hockey, you know? Look at this. They got this guy in camp, letting him show that he's still got some juice left in the tank for the other teams. Like that's what the Leafs or the Penguins, that's what Kyle Dubas is all about, right? He might be a general manager, but he's got a heart. Whereas for the Islanders, it's, oh my God, Lou, like making this, torturing this guy by making him come take slap shots from Maxim Siplikov at rookie camp.
I mean, we saw that happen with Josh Hosang. That was the exact thing. Wow, what a great thing for Toronto area native Josh Hosang to finally get a chance to play for his hometown team, and he spent the whole time playing for the Marlies. Like, okay, it's a hometown team, I guess, but yeah, people did take it kind of a weird way. But again, go watch the video, look at the look on Kinkaid's face, and that will all be washed away. Like that's just, I mean, it's just the coolest thing ever. So I hope it works out for him, and I hope he's healthy, and I hope that he has a good season, and he enjoys playing for his hometown team. That being said, if all things go correctly, no offense to Keith Kinkaid, we will never see Keith Kinkaid play for the Islanders again, maybe in some mop-up, garbage time games later on in the season. But one of the things that his PTO made people wonder about was the health of Ilya Sorokin. So earlier this week, Elliot Friedman on the brand new 32 Thoughts with Kyle Bukowskis. I have some thoughts on that. We'll leave to myself.
We can get into it later.
Yeah, maybe later we'll get into it. But he said that he had heard that Sorokin was battling something, which, basically sent every mind who thinks about the Islanders racing. I'm a little bit surprised Elliot would go with something that vague when he knows how hockey fans, particularly Islanders fans, are. But that just sent everybody scrambling for, oh my God, what's going on? Oh my God, the season is already over. Lamoriello came out during training camp and said that Ilya Sorokin had a little injury during summer training. He is skating. It's nothing we're concerned about. We are not worried. It will extend into the season. So he did say that he might miss the first couple of days of training camp, but he'll be fine for the rest of the season. That's all you're going to get from Lou, to be honest with you. Whether there's more to the story, we don't know. I'm not going to sit here and talk out of my ass about this. I'm not going to start making up wild, crazy theories about it. For me, missing training camp isn't great. Kyle Palmieri missed a couple of days of training camp, and I think, was that last season or the year before?
It was 2 seasons ago.
And like he didn't really have a great season, and that kept bothering me that he had basically missed training camp. That happened to Varlamov too.
Didn't he miss part of the season too? Am I wrong there?
So.
Because
Yeah.
remember it was that, oh yeah, Kyle Palmieri, he's like day to day, and then like that day to day just kept. That's I think you're right to be worried about that part. Like as soon as Lou spoke, I actually was like,
yeah,
should we be concerned that he's lying here? And I don't think lying is the right word, but he could be saying, yeah, he's, we're not concerned at this moment. That's what I said. I didn't, but we've seen this before with Palmieri
and Varlamov too, who missed a couple of training camp days and then had kind of a mediocre season. So that part does bother me. But like you said, once they get
Scott Mayfield last year, he's fine. He's fine. He's back in the lineup. Actually, he's done for the season.
Yeah. He's just going to play poorly for 4 months. People are going to just hate his guts. And then, oh, by the way, he's been playing on a broken ankle for 4. Oh, thanks, guys. So the Islanders, it's very frustrating getting any kind of injury information out of the Islanders. So I get that people are, their radar is up, their antennas are up. They don't like the sound of all this. That being said, until the games are real, I'm not going to be too worried about it. But you actually had kind of a different take on this. You actually found it a little bit refreshing that they said anything about Sorokin being injured. And again, the Kinkaid thing isn't directly tied to Sorokin, but when it turns out that he is maybe managing something or battling something, as Elliot Friedman said, you do wonder why they needed a fourth goalie in camp. But you felt that this was actually somewhat made you feel better that Lou talked about Sorokin.
I was very relieved actually, because there's a lot to this to get into. And I actually thought when the Islanders signed Keith Kinkaid to the PTO, I was like, okay, he can't be that hurt. Because if Sorokin was dealing with something more significant than what Lou let on, you'd imagine that they'd go and get all due respect to Keith Kinkaid, but like a goalie with a higher ceiling to play with Varlamov right out of the gates, whether Kevin Lankinen is still out there as a free agent. They could have called Detroit has like 11 goalies. Maybe like
but they're all super mid though. So I get what you're saying, but
like they would have. They're definitely a little bit better than Kinkaid. So like I was like, all right, they're not going to go into the season with their goaltending depth chart looking like Varlamov, Marcus Hogberg, who hasn't played in the NHL in years, and Keith Kinkaid if Sorokin is out till Thanksgiving, right? So I was like, that made me feel a little bit better, actually. Like a lot of Islander fans are like, oh, this is bad news. And I was like, actually, I think this is okay. It's much better to see Keith Kinkaid's name next to that PTO than like someone like Kevin Lankinen or a goalie who was just playing in the NHL, 25 games last year. And the other thing was that when Elliot Friedman said that he was battling something, it was vague, but I guess he was kind of right? Like everyone, it's still kind of what we're dealing with, right? Sorokin's battling some upper body injury. He's going to be okay for the start of the season per Lou. And that made me feel a little bit better than it being more open-ended. It's always going to be vague and kind of open-ended, I guess, with Lou at all times, no matter what he's saying. But this one, at least, if we're taking him at his word and being honest, which you decide if you want to do that or not, he did nip the worst case scenario in the bud, which is that he was going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, or he tore his ACL or something like that. There's nothing like really nefarious going on. So that's why I was relieved, because whenever something like this pops up, the worst case scenario is what I always kind of default to, because we're dealing with the Islanders, right? If it's the Rangers, you're just like, oh, I think he'll be fine, he'll be back.
Yeah.
I just watched this guy's knee get mangled, but he'll be fine because he's the Ranger. And the other thing was that it kind of stopped the discourse for a while, because the discourse was getting really, really tiring about Sorokin. We haven't even dropped the puck on rookie camp at that point, and people were already going into these weird wormholes, and you're like, oh God, everyone, you can still go outside before the season starts.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I guess when you put it that way, that makes sense, So now, that being said, again, like we talked about before, we have no idea what this actually means, and Lou will never tell us until it's too late. So hopefully this is in fact just the first couple of days of training camp. which does begin on Thursday and does not stretch into, oh, he's day to day. And before you know it, it's Thanksgiving. And it's like, well, what happened to day to day, missing the first few days of training camp? Oh, yeah, he's coming along. Okay, we'll see. But something tells me they wouldn't do that with Sorokin, but we'll have to see. But in any event, Kinkaid is here. Sorokin isn't, but I'm sure that, when it comes to camp, Sorokin will be here. He just won't be, probably on the ice. They'll probably have some trainers or whatever, but they're going to come take his picture. He'll, do some video stuff, I'm sure. Okay. So why don't we stick with a current Islander and move on to Matt Martin. So Martin, they announced will attend Islanders training camp on a professional tryout. Lou again said he's coming on a PTO. He's a legitimate candidate. He's trained, we've spoken, and he wants to play. And we're totally upfront and honest, and we'll have to get through training camp and make the best decision we can make at the time. Which, sounds okay, but at the same time, like, I wonder how Matt Martin feels about this. Martin did not have a great season last year. 57 games, 8 points, 4 goals, 4 assists, noticeably slower. But there is another number to consider here, and that is that he is 45 games shy of 1,000 for his career. And I highly suspect that he would like to play that 1,000th NHL game in an Islanders uniform, which means obviously a lot to him, means a lot to us. We love Matt Martin. But it's going to be a bit, I guess, a little bit weird. I feel bad that he's going to have to answer some tough questions, I think, from media when he shows up at camp, which again, is just a slight change in what his normal day to day is probably like on the island. He had his Matt Martin hockey camp already. I'm sure he was at the poker tournament, right, that he hosts as well. I'm sure he was at the Jam Cancer event for Anders Lee. I'm sure he's popped up everywhere in usual spots because he's the mayor of Long Island at this point. But this was, again, you mentioned it before. This was, again, the kind of news that make people go, Lou sucks. Why are we doing this? What's he doing? Why? And meanwhile, if this was some 35-year-old Leaf who was getting a PTO, they'd be throwing roses at him and planning parades and parties for him and stuff like that, and it would be a great thing. So I'm curious to see where it goes. As a person, we love Matt Martin here. I don't know how much he has left in the tank as a player. Last year was not easy to watch at times, but I do, again, I believe Lou when he says he's going to give him a shot to come in, which means that for some young guy is going to have to take that spot. And that's what I'm also curious about. I'm interested to see who can beat Martin out for that spot. And if he doesn't, that might say a lot as well. I don't know what, but we'll have to see. What did you make of Martin getting this PTO and coming in on a tryout? Remember, this is a tryout now. This is a guy who's been on the team for 10 years or, in 2 separate spots for a long time, and he's getting a tryout. It's a little bit weird, but at the same time, I'm interested to see how it goes.
I guess my first thought was that this, and maybe it's cynical, but my first thought was that this was going to be a months-long PTO. Right? Like where the Islanders are maybe the only team in the NHL that has a shadow team, and they've had one for years where they'll just tell Radek Martinek to skate at Iceworks for a while and just keep checking in.
Seidenberg.
When Dylan Reese goes down, you can slide in. Seidenberg, Matt Karkner was there for a while. And now it's like I wonder if Keith Kinkaid too, if he doesn't get a 2-way deal somewhere else, do we see Keith Kinkaid kind of just become the goaltender for the shadow team and start being the guy who's playing, every time they need a goalie at Iceworks, if Sorokin or Varlamov are banged up, maybe he's the e-bug, that kind of stuff. Because the Islanders, there is another number we didn't mention, which is the Islanders per Puckpedia are exactly at the cap, $88 million as well. I think that they actually might be over it when all kind of shakes out. I guess technically they can get under it through sending down one player or another. I'm not totally sure, but anyways, they're up against it. So not only does Martin have to beat someone out, then they'd have to, whether it's waiving Wallstrom or Bashing, however, they have to get down to they have to be cap compliant as well. So that's what makes me think that they're telling Martin, look, like, we know Matt Martin isn't going to be a big contributor to a team that has playoff aspirations over 82 games, but if Simon Holmstrom gets hurt or someone gets hurt on the bottom six, he can fill in and knows the system, and there's not much of a there is no learning curve. He'll go in there and he can slot in easily and play a couple games here and there for the Islanders. Then they can, I don't know, figure it out from there. I that's what it feels like to me, that this is just a way to punt things down the road, see how training camp ends up, and go from there. But it is funny at the same time. Like, it's just here's Mr. Islander 2.0 basically coming in, and it also tells you that he probably just didn't want to go anywhere else. Play on like a veteran minimum. Whereas sounds like maybe Clutterbuck is holding out for that opportunity. But I don't know. Like, I don't know who has room for Cal and who needs that kind of player as well. So, but at the same time, if they were imagine they brought them both in on PTOs, like, then, you two are now competing for spot against one another after you played, you've been best friends on the same line forever. It gets even creepier. So, it's both. It's a very Islanders, very Lou thing to do, to bring him in, and the as you said, the backlash to it was also very Islanders and very Lou as well, because everybody made their big jokes, and they were so funny, and everyone got very famous from the jokes, and is now very rich from all the engagement that they got on Twitter from the jokes, from the Kinkaid jokes, or the way that they every opportunity that they've had to make fun of Lou or say that for the Islanders, everyone's now making a career out of it. So congratulations to all them. While once again, it was, like you said, it's a thing that kind of a favor, almost, I would say. And I know that Lou said that this one isn't a favor, because I think he was asked point blank, is this like a favor for Martin to like show that he can show, and he's that he can still play? And Lou said he's a legitimate candidate, as you said. But I don't know. I think there's some truth to that, like, but I think it's more about, hey, if we're in a pinch, rather than rush someone up from the AHL, we can feel pretty confident that we can plug Matt Martin in as a fourth liner, and he can play his 8 minutes, and we'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, if he does end up playing kind of, every other night or something like that, and gets to that 45 games and maybe finishes the season like on the last day of the season with that 1,000th game, I think that'd be pretty cool. And I think that's probably the best usage of him, that he kind of, platoons with somebody else. Because we talked about this all last year, and I feel like maybe the year before too. Like, he doesn't necessarily need to be in the lineup every single night. Although in 22-23, he actually matched his career high with 19 points and 7 goals and 12 assists, and he played full 81 games. So it wasn't that long ago that this guy was like a solid contributor to this team. He started showing his age at 34.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to, again, seeing how it goes. I don't know what his friends are going to think about this. Yeah, if they had brought them both back, that would be a little bit weird. We'll get to Clutterbuck in a second. But I mean, listen, Matt Martin's a big boy. He's worked under Lou now for a long, long time. He knows what the Islanders are like, and I think he kind of gets the deal. I can tell you right now, he ain't going to Bridgeport. Like, there's no he's either playing.
It's either the shadow team or
right. Yeah, he's either going to get signed here, or they're going to release him and he can go find something else, or he retires. Maybe he comes to camp and retires, something like that.
I don't know. Do Islanders retire anymore?
No.
Like,
they joined the shadow team.
Josh Bailey hasn't retired. He's on the shadow team, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, I would be shocked if Cal Clutterbuck retires
right.
at any point soon, because he clearly has his eyes out. And I mean, Martin has said he wants to keep playing, and Keith Kinkaid now is not going to retire. Like, who's the last Islander to retire? Andy Green? It's really strange. Like, they kind of just don't retire. They kind of just stop playing and hang around.
Well, Johnny Boychuk, but that was forced because of the medical guy thing. There's that. But even he's doing this like video thing where he's talking about slap shots with Kevin Connolly. So like, even he's not retired. Like, he's still around. Zach Parisi said, "Well, I'm playing with the Islanders of nowhere." And he ended up playing with Colorado, so he didn't retire either. It's like a friend of mine says about pro wrestlers. Nobody ever really retires from pro wrestling. They're like, "Oh, I'm going to retire," and then 5 years later, it's like, "I'm back," and he wrestles a match and he loses or whatever. So it's like, it's sort of the same thing. So yeah,
like
I don't know.
Matt Martin, if he doesn't make the team, I can guarantee you he might not make the opening night roster, but Matt Martin will be at UBS Arena on opening night, like just there and doing something. He'll wear an Islanders pullover or something. And would it surprise you if you just like one day Radek Martinek just had to like fill in, or Mark Streit or someone like that, who's just these guys who kind of just like come and go? I mean, Nikolai Kulemin, he didn't retire. He's got a PTO in Ottawa. Like once you play for the Islanders for a significant amount, you just don't retire.
It is pretty funny. Like, again, we are going to talk about Cal Clutterbuck, but as of us talking right now, Cal Clutterbuck is not signed to PTO, and it is. I wonder if he's like, wait, they gave Kulemin a PTO. I can't get a PTO. What? Apparently, Kulemin's son plays like junior in the Ontario area, but not in Ottawa, but maybe close enough that they want to give him a shot. So we'll see what happens. But it is pretty funny that
and I think actually what Ottawa one thing that Ottawa does has done the past couple of seasons, I think is kind of smart, is bringing guys like Bailey or Kulemin in on these PTOs, being like, you'll play every preseason game. So, because then you have to fulfill a veteran minimum in preseason games. So you can have them play every game, and that's one veteran that you don't have to have Matt Barzal play. And these guys will be grateful for the opportunity to play. So, I don't see that. I don't see the downside to that, other than maybe you're taking reps away from some young players. But I mean, why not?
One thing, because I hadn't realized the Puckpedia thing with the cap. I mean, Wahlstrom is on $1 million contract right now. If he doesn't make it out of camp, they could just waive him or whatever, and I don't think he's going to get picked up, honestly. Fashing is another guy they can waive. Another guy, who else was on this list I just saw? Bolduc is on the depth chart here. He could, I'm sure they didn't want to waive him, but at this point I think it's probably okay. So because Siplikov also is making $950, just under $1 million. So they'll have to figure it out, but they don't need to be compliant until the day before the season, which is why everybody tries to sneak people through waivers, that last waiver period. Before
and that's when we get all our favorite tweets.
Yes. Yeah.
If you don't pick up Alex Barre-Boulet. Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't pick up Josh Hosang that's a fireable offense. Okay, sure, whatever. I was speaking of like complaining. This wasn't about Martin, but I saw one person was like, "Islanders fans deserve so much better than Lou." Okay, sure they do. This guy's probably still crying about snakes being thrown on the ice 6 years ago, and now we deserve so much better. Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Oh, it was an outsider. It wasn't an Islander.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, we do. We definitely. Do. This is the team that had its backup goalie as a GM, and it was a significant upgrade to the previous GM. Yeah, that's the team that definitely doesn't deserve. It's crazy. So everyone else is geeked up for hockey. Here we are to just throw cold water on it. Be like, no, don't get excited yet. Just this is going to be an insufferable couple of weeks where we're just rooting against injuries and dealing with the Rangers beat patrol talking about Matt Rempe.
Oh my God! The Rangers beat patrol talking about him is one thing. Everybody else talking about Matt Rempe is something else. Like I get they're talking about him, that's fine. Everybody else talking about him is something entirely different.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
When it comes to fitness, what's real? How about when it really, truly fits your life? That's how Anytime Fitness sees it. Because our coaches see you. It's how they build personal plans that work wherever you are and focus on everything that matters. From fitness to nutrition to recovery, all so you can push yourself further than ever, or just through the next rep. It's total 360 support for a real difference. That's Anytime Fitness. That's Real AF. Visit AnytimeFitness.com.
If your child is considering something as big as joining the military, you can bet they're taking the time to do some research. You can too, by visiting todaysmilitary.com, because their success tomorrow begins with your support today.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. Everybody needs some variety in life. That's what I love about Chumba Casino. They know how to keep things fresh and exciting. All their games are free to play, like spin slots, bingo and solitaire, you can claim free daily login bonuses too. And they release new games every week. So spice things up with ChumbaCasino.com now for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
And now, a word from our sponsors. First is VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, mugs, and more, featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey also carries our Al Arbor and the Island merch, and our portion of the sales always go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. Use the code ANXIETY20 to save 20% off an order of 2 items. That is VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a 2022 Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly. But there is one other person we need to talk about. And this person is not at Islanders camp. Won't be at Islanders camp, I should say, on a PTO. And that is Cal Clutterbuck, who we've been dancing around this whole time. Cal Lamoriello confirmed that he would not be attending Islanders camp on a PTO. From what I understand, he is contemplating, latching on with another team or perhaps retiring at this point. I don't know what kind of offers he's gotten or anything. Cal has got a number of, he's got like 3 or 4 kids, right? I think they're all pretty small too. Can't imagine he wants to move too far. I can't imagine he wants to sign a PTO with the Rangers if they've offered it to him, which of course I don't know. Maybe the Devils if they offered it to him, but again, I don't know. Probably, Flyers or what. None of that seems like feasible for Cal. So I don't know what's going on with him. It is a little odd that, he had a pretty decent season last year as well. That, some people thought was one of his better seasons in the last little while. 82 games for the first time in a long time, 7 goals, 12 assists, 19 points. For him, that's pretty good. He's been injured so many times over the last number of years that it was good to see him play a full season. And, 19 points for him is pretty good. That being said, he's also 36. He will be 37 in November. And unfortunately, and he's not the only one who was, part of this, was part of the worst penalty killing in the league last year. And I feel like as a guy who's considered a penalty killer, a depth player, a very good one for that matter, for a long time, it feels like that might be something that people would want to know what happened there and might give them pause. So I don't know. It sucks. Change sucks. I see why the Islanders maybe wouldn't want to bring Cal back. I could see why he would want another opportunity and might wonder, if he still has something left in the tank. It's certainly, again, I'm glad he played 81 games last year. But at that being said, there were times when I felt like that position on the fourth line could have been upgraded. And maybe they needed something. Casey Zizekas for a long time played on first line. So we probably didn't see the best of Cal Clutterbuck that we could have seen. But if this is the end of the line for Cal Clutterbuck, I think he's a guy who a lot of Islanders fans will have a lot of fond memories of. I think that it's going to be tough watching him play for somebody else if it comes to that. And it might be strange, but the concept of the shadow team, as you have coined here, looms large. And I don't think he's going to be gone from Long Island for very long. Let's put it that way. Even if he does sign a PTO with somebody else. I mean, Josh Bailey signed a PTO with Ottawa, and by the start of the season, he was gone. And by Christmas, he was like hanging around the MSG Network studios, like at the park skating with his kids. So I could totally see that happening too. But, if I'm Cal, I think I might have something left in the tank. Played a full 82 games last year, although, again, it was maybe not the best season he could have had or the Islanders could have had, but I thought maybe he might have a claim to PTO, but it's up to him where he wants to do and what he wants to do, and where he wants to do it, I should say. What are your feelings on Clutterbuck not being offered a PTO and not being at training camp this year?
Yeah, it's one of those situations that is on paper probably the right decision.
Yeah,
like if you were to say, like if you were to put Cal Clutterbuck in his entire career, like and just put him on the Anaheim Ducks, and we saw that they were separating, or weren't bringing him back, we'd probably be like, oh yeah, obviously that's the right way to look at it. But Ducks fans, of course, you're being torn in a lot of different directions, and that's what we're dealing with here. Like if you take a step back, it looks right. Probably the right way to go about making sure that the Islanders are their best. They have the best roster going forward, but at the same time, sports are romantic and they're supposed to be about the good guys versus the bad guys. And Cal Clutterbuck is definitely one of our good guys, and he's 12 years, man. Like it's still crazy to me that he's an Islander for that long.
Right.
Because when he came into the league with Minnesota, so many people gravitated towards him because of his style of play, his mustache, his name, all that stuff, and he kind of became a cult hero, a cult figure for the league at large, not just the Wild. And then he ends up on the Islanders, and that personality starts to diminish over time. Naturally, that's not me saying, complaining about the way the Islanders are covered like that, just generally. But for us, like he was always such a huge part and a huge presence of the team. You noticed him anytime he was really on the ice. Mostly good, sometimes bad. And he's a guy that you just always wanted to see win with this team because he understood the mission. He gave everything. There's no doubt that guy just gave everything he could to the Islanders and to making this team as likable as it is. And one of the lasting memories for me with him will be the game that against the Leafs where him and Mayfield like took out Tavares at the very end when I think they both kind of realized that, hey, this could be it for me. This is my last chance to kind of just like tell this guy to shove it. That's how I read into it at least. But that's the kind of player he was. Like I think he was someone who held grudges, the right kind of grudges. And yeah, I'll miss him as a personality and as a part of the fabric of the team. He's definitely part of the furniture with the Islanders now, but it's hard to justify bringing him back when it's not as much, like you said, like he had a decent year last year, but what are the chances that he puts in even comes close to replicating it? Right. We probably saw the last of his good years last year, and it wasn't even like it knocked you over. There were certainly times where it was frustrating more than anything. And you look at the years previous, like he played 50 games and he played 50. Well, that was a shortened year, but he played like 59 and 49 the two previous. So he was missing chunks of time, and I would say it's more likely than not that he would play less than 60 games than more than 60 games coming up. So the Islanders, I think one criticism we've had with them is that they maybe wait a season too long. With some of these guys, like even someone like Hudson Fasching, he had a really nice season with them, and then they brought him back, and it didn't go well. And we probably should have thought, why would we expect this player just to be more than he was after he probably he could have already had his best Islander season in that short stint that he had where he was effective, because he clearly wasn't there last year. So it's funny that Clutterbuck and Martin kind of both represent that way of thinking, like holding on to these guys for past their expiration date, and at the same time, moving on from Clutterbuck here is like a step in the right direction to not doing that anymore. But I guess when he's someone who deserves like a full, fleshed out, tribute from us and the Islander fan base. So when he does decide to retire, if he does, like I'm sure we'll get there. But for now, like you said, it's weird seeing him in limbo like this because, like you said, I think the Kuhlman example is prescient. Like he gets a PTO and I can't, but maybe at the same time he got offered these ones like in Ottawa or something. Like I'm sure he's doesn't want to move too far away to work his tail off at a training camp with a franchise that he doesn't know. So interested to see where this one ends up, but definitely a big debt of gratitude to Clutterbuck from us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we talk about this all the time, guys who come in and they get it. And I mean, Cal Clutterbuck like literally came in and got it. And the funny thing was that, through no fault of his own, that the trade that brought him here was very controversial for a very long time. And to Cal's credit, I don't ever think he gave a shit. He didn't give a shit that what Niederreiter was doing in Minnesota, or that people thought that the Islanders got soaked on this trade for this whatever defensive guy, depth guy, whatever. Meanwhile, Nino's out there scoring all kinds of goals for Minnesota, and it hasn't really translated to much at all. And meanwhile, Clutterbuck found a home here, and gave the Islanders a much needed shot of attitude. And I think that to me is always going to be the lasting thing with Cal Clutterbuck. Love the attitude, love the edge that he gave the Islanders. Did not love, as you again so correctly pointed out, that for the last couple of years there, led the league in walks down the tunnel in the middle of the game. That's because it happened every game. It felt like for years and years. Oh, there goes Cal Clutterbuck down the tunnel, and the Islanders are down to 12 forwards or whatever. So it's a different kind of thing that you want him to be successful, but at the same time, like you said, on paper, I feel like it's probably for the best that they move on. But like I said, don't cry too hard, because don't be surprised if you see Cal Clutterbuck hanging around Long Island in the not too distant future. Even if he signs a contract or a PTO with somebody, I have a feeling he's going to be back, and he ain't leaving this island anytime soon. That's for sure. So we see what happens. Now, this is going to come out Monday morning, so hopefully by the time you hear this, not a ton has changed. But we'll have to see. Again, training camps for everybody don't really start until Thursday. And just rookie camps are going on now. So we'll have to see. There is one other person we should talk about. I just remembered this. Our friend Arthur Staple put out a tweet last week mentioning, again, Keith Kinkaid coming in. But he also mentioned a young Russian defenseman named Artem Kudashov. 19-year-old defenseman, started the season with Dynamo Moscow in the KHL, but is over here for the time being. Stefan Rosner had an article about him. His dad played for the Leafs, which I don't remember, back in the early 90s, 93, 94. Said he grew up rooting for the Leafs and both New York teams. Sounds kind of phony to me, if you ask me. But we'll have to see. He considered himself a two-way defenseman, pretty good in the defensive zone, can move in and make some plays in the attack zone. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. What does that mean? I have absolutely no idea. But we'll see. We'll see how that works out. Most likely, I guess he's probably gunning for a spot in Bridgeport. I can't imagine he's looking to make the Islanders. He did participate in a Flyers camp last summer before returning to Russia. So I don't know. Interesting. That's the one cool thing about rookie camps is you look at these lists and you're like, yeah, I know him. Who the hell is that? And you're just like, oh yeah, okay, he's here. We'll have to see how that goes. But did you have any? Did you go down the rabbit hole for Artem Kudashov and
no, I didn't.
Learn more about him?
I resisted that temptation. But because, like you said, the random guys just pop up. Because a lot of times rookie camps, as Lou said, like you just got to fill out the camp and some guys will do favors for you and you'll do favors for them. And I'm sure it sounds like this guy was kind of just like kicking around North America and trying to maybe catch on one way or another. And he was at Flyers camp and now he's here. So it is what it is. And like we brought up a couple of, I think on one of the mailbags about the Hungarian player that they brought in a couple years ago or last year.
Mix Indrasis?
Zsombor Garat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just like a random guy. And just because, yeah, why not? Like just if someone's kicking around, their agent calls and maybe they've got a reason to be here and they just need a place to practice and you need the bodies and you don't want to have to fill those bodies with maybe more players that you don't want to see get hurt. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but you get the point. And so you fill these guys out. But yeah, he'll best of luck to him. And it's so, yeah, you get this random dude from Russia, 19-year-old, and you get Keith Kinkaid at your rookie camp. And I think that ticks all the boxes for a Lou Lamoriello Islanders era rookie camp. The only thing we're missing is like Eric Bolton or Matt Karkner just showing up and just doing some drill.
Well, they're on the shadow team now, as we know. Karkner for sure. I'm pretty sure Bolton might have been too, actually, now that I think about it. So, but that's fun. Yeah. So that's it. So a few more days of the rookies skating around, and then the big boys show up on Thursday, get their pictures taken. They do some fun video stuff where they all try and pronounce various Long Island towns and things like that. It's always a lot of fun. Bo Horvat already had that stuff done because he was out in Vegas doing the NHL's media tour thing. Apparently, 32 Thoughts guys only ever talked to Sidney Crosby and David Pastrnak. So maybe they'll deem Bo worthy of 2-second mention on 32 Thoughts at some point. We'll have to see. Last thing before we sign off, a couple of things. Number one, last player I want to mention, by the way, right now is defenseman Marshall Warren. The Islanders signed him last year. He was a Minnesota Wild pick. He'd gone to Michigan, but he was from the island, and he grew up an Islanders fan, and he signed here just before the end of the season. He signed with Bridgeport. I don't know what's going to happen with this kid, but I urge everybody to go to the Islanders site and watch the video of him from training rookie camp day 1, which I guess was last Thursday. And the smile on his face is just incredible. And I'm just so happy for him. This is my guy now. I really hope this works out. I really hope he can make the Islanders because I'm rooting hard for him. And he just seemed really thrilled to be here. And again, between him and Kinkaid, I was really feeling the Islanders' pride on that first day of rookie camp. Hopefully it doesn't get extinguished too quickly, but they made me feel really good. So that's number one, Marshall Warren. I'm putting my money down on him right now.
I think he was the player that mentioned that Nick Leddy was his favorite Islander, right?
Yes.
And it's kind of just dawned on me. So we always make fun of the fact that these guys from Long Island who end up making the NHL are always, hey, who's your favorite team growing up? Oh, Rangers.
Yeah.
And then you realize that's kind of hard to blame them because we were watching, the Blake Como was leading the Islanders in scoring back then, right? And it's so not too much to get excited about, and you're not going to fault an 8-year-old kid for not wanting to watch that and going to the Rangers who were going to the Eastern Conference Final with the help of opposition goalies getting hurt and the officials every year. And this player, Marshall Warren, he watched his coming of age team had Nick Leddy on it.
Yeah.
So those teams are pretty good. Like maybe we'll start seeing more of this as the number 1 overall pick, projected number 1 overall pick next year as an Islander fan. I think the long and if he's not, I'm making him one. And I think it's you'll see more of this as these players start to pop up over the next few years because the teams that they watched weren't being threatened to move to Kansas City every other week, and it's like they were competent teams.
Yeah.
So that's that they didn't go to school every day and have to look around the classroom being like, I wonder if anyone else in here is an Islander fan out of these 40 kids, and the answer being no. And then it was like, it's still a small pocket, but there are some. So it was a lot easier to be an Islander fan growing up for these kids, and hopefully, like you said, we're rooted for them. And the other thing too to note is, sounds like the Bridgeport blue line will be more intriguing than it's been in years, because they have him and they've got Isaiah George, a couple other guys. I love that Lou Lamoriello name dropped Dennis Cholowski. There he is.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where someone and he didn't pronounce the name as I don't know what the correct pronunciation is. Maybe we're both wrong, but it sounded more like Cherkowski when Lou said it. Maybe it's just his thick Providence accent, but he's like, I'm excited to see where Cherkowski's game is. But it sounds like they'll have a more competent. There's going to be more bodies for the Islanders to choose from that will push for spots and maybe fill in more admirably than we've seen. It's not just going to be like, Scott Mayfield got hurt. That means Grant Hutton's music. There'll actually be some options to choose from in those situations. So
that would be cool. It'd be cool to see a nice Bridgeport team for once. That almost never happens. It's happened. They made playoffs one time in the last 20 years. So that would be cool to see. But it is fun. And you talking about Marshall Warren clinging to Nick Leddy makes me think that 15 years from now we might have players who want to be Islanders because they watched Cal Clutterbuck or Matt Martin or Matt Barzell or whoever, and again, it's never lost on me the generations of fans this team lost because of they just couldn't solve their own problems. They couldn't get out of their own way. And it's funny that team, the 14-15 team, which, again, to me feels like it happened last week, is the one now that's really kind of, influencing and getting people excited to watch the Islanders and making new fans. And here's our first experiment. Our first representative of that is Marshall Warren. So that'd be pretty cool. So again, go to the video and check that out. That's number one. Number two is we are going to be doing a mailbag episode over at the Patreon this Tuesday. So the call for questions is going to go up on Monday. So get over to patreon.com/islandersanxiety, sign up for the country club tier, and you can ask a question and hear the episode when it comes out Wednesday morning. You can also, and I've mentioned this before, but I just want to make it clear as well, you can sign up for free at the Patreon. It doesn't cost you any money. You can just follow us for free, and that's the best place to get announcements if we have kind of a scheduling change, or to read our weekly release calendar, which I'm literally going to write for this week as soon as I'm done recording this. So go over to patreon.com/islandersanxiety, sign up for a full membership, get ad-free episodes, bonus stuff, or sign up for free. You get announcements and you can read our weekly release calendar, see what we put out, and maybe you'll want to sign up later on. Then the final thing is that this is not an official episode of Islanders Anxiety. This is a summer special. I've been calling it that. I've been dancing around the numbering all summer long. It will make a lot more sense once we actually do start recording for real episodes, just in a couple of weeks, actually. The 29th is going to be our first official episode of the 24-25 season. And again, it'll make a lot more sense. That will be episode 299. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. But this is a little bit, we've been kind of just having fun this summer, doing kinds of weird stuff. And obviously we had our Master Leaf Theater episode that went really viral, or I should say people really enjoyed it over at the Patreon. And as I said on that episode, if John Tavares is not signed to an extension with the Maple Leafs before the start of the season, I'm going to make that episode free for everybody. So we only have a few more weeks to find out if that's true or not. If he's not signed by the time the Leafs play, I'm going to put out the Master Leaf Theater episode for everybody to hear about his relinquishing of the captaincy, which has garnered tons and tons and tons of praise, and stars our friend Michael Paul Smith, who did an amazing job reading the Leafs articles. So that's something to keep an eye out for there. Thanks a lot for listening. Sign up to patreon.com/islandersanxiety for ad-free episodes and bonus content. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible.com, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us a review where you can. Our theme song is Morning Haze by Family Dinner, who have a new album out. Check it out. Family Dinner, brand new album. Just came out a couple weeks ago. Check it out on Bandcamp and listen to more of their music there and at Spotify. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Learn more at fansfirstsports.com. Shop vintageiceshockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. Read and listen to his work at Action Network for both hockey and soccer. Soccer stuff is ramping up. Champions League stuff is going to be ramping up soon. So Mike is super hard at work, talking about everything under the sun. He's their go-to hockey guy too. So he's very, very busy these days. But do you have any final thoughts on Islanders rookie camp after the first couple of days? Turns out they're actually playing right now, which probably we should have taken into consideration before scheduling this podcast, but that's okay. Again, as long as everybody makes it out healthy, that's all that matters. So I don't really give a shit what's going on, but they are playing right now. But any final thoughts on this year's Islanders rookie camp?
No, but I did. When you mentioned the Patreon Master Leaf Theater, it did remind me of something I did want to bring up, which is that to bring this episode full circle, to talk about what the things that are just nauseating about this time of year, is that the Leafs are on a full court press of PR ahead of this training camp. And what they're doing is so bizarre because people are eating it up. And it's that the Leafs, I'm not kidding. If you've been listening to any mainstream hockey podcasts that usually emanate out of Toronto, or if you go deeper like Dan and I do, or me more than you, I guess, I've been listening to some Toronto radio as well. The Leafs have declared that this training camp will be very competitive, which is the full court. That like the main. There's an article right now on Sportsnet from our friend Luke Fox Jukebox about this, where in the line, the third or fourth paragraph into the whole article is September is shaping up to be the most competitive Leafs camp in years. But it's not just him. Like this is the message coming out of Leafs camp, which is that like this is going to be a really competitive camp, which is just so funny because the entire point of training camp is competing for spots, jobs, and all that. And but because it's the Leafs, it's big news that they're using the C word, being competitive this time around. And you're going to hear the words heavy hockey a lot. I heard the Jeff O'Neill, Frankie Corrado, Jamie McLennan debate what heavy hockey is. for an hour. And once again, who's the loser here, right? Like, it was me washing dishes, listening to that. So get ready to hear a lot of the C word, a lot of the H word coming out of Leafs camp. That should set us up pretty well for some good pieces of content from our friends over, whether it be at Sportsnet or The Athletic, or wherever we like to go digging for Master Leaf Theater. But it's that's the message coming out of Maple Leaf Land, is that it's going to be competitive. So look out. They're really pushing the envelope here.
Yeah. This is, a par for the course for the Leafs. This is the time when they can rightfully claim to be the best team in the league, because nobody's doing anything and everybody's all 0-0s. It's called Quick Shifts, overcrowded Maple Leafs set up fights for jobs. If you want to, it's by Luke Fox Jukebox. It's on Sportsnet right now. And if you want to cringe so hard that you turn into a ball and actually kind of turn inward into yourself, and to the point where you actually enter the quantum realm and cease to be like a corporeal person, I highly recommend reading it, because I read the first paragraph and immediately winced so hard that I almost stopped recording this podcast right now. So definitely check it out. And if you have no access to psychedelic drugs, this might be the closest thing you'll get to Luke Fox summer article on the Leafs training camp. But yeah, check it out. And we'll be back again with our mailbag episode over the Patreon on Wednesday. It's going to come out on Wednesday. We're going to record it Tuesday. It's going to come out on Wednesday. And then the 29th is going to be our first official episode of this season, following training camp and a couple of preseason games. All right. So we'll be right around the corner talking about hockey live for the first time in several months. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.